Alrighty. Our next speaker is going to be Miss Susie Beyl. Susie is a senior at Yale University from West Haven, Connecticut, studying political science and education studies, focusing on nationalism, violent conflict, and geopolitics. She has spent 3 years with the teaching organization Hemispheres, a group within the Yale International Relations Association, which offers free weekly classes in international relations and subsidized domestic and international educational trips to New Haven County Public High School students. As a teacher and, from 2017 to 2018, director, Susie found that Hemispheres created a vibrant space for young people to speak uninhibitedly about international affairs and sought to understand how people have conversations about place and belonging at Yale and beyond. That goal led her to work with K-12 students in subsidized housing in Louisville, Kentucky, co-lead a research trip to Indonesia to study multicultural identity formation, and to Connecticut's largest refugee resettlement agency, Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services, to work with recently arrived students. On campus, she works multiple part-time jobs to sustain a pad thai habit, listens to Broadway musical soundtracks, and is always in search of medium to large dogs to pet. By dedicating her studies to forces which divide communities and exclude, post-graduation, she hopes to work in the opposite direction, towards strengthening communities and emboldening inclusion. With all that being said, please give it up for our next speaker, Ms. Susie Beyl.
Thank you, Sarah. Position myself on this old rug. Okay, so as Sarah said just a moment ago with my introduction, I think it'd be a good idea to start out right now with exactly that, an introduction. So I assume that most people, especially students, at some point in their lives have prepared an introduction in a new setting. For most people, this usually goes along the line of name, maybe where you're from, what you study, or what you like to do. And especially in college, it's a lot of name, major, field of study, etc. So my traditional intro goes a little bit something like this. Hi. My name is Susie Beyl, and I study political science and education studies with a focus on nationalism and genocide studies. Now, to focus on that last part, first of all, I say it because it's true. That's just literally what I study. But second, and more strategically, I say that last part to subvert any stereotypes that began to form in the minds of people once I said the first part. Introductions are really important, and so are first impressions. And they start an immediate line of thinking as soon as you say it. So let's unpack that a little bit. Susie, woman. Political science, general. Education studies, sweet or benign. But what I want people to know when I say that I also study education and genocide studies in conflict is that I'm serious and mean business about a real connection between international relations and education. And I see that, and with a word, a very provocative word like a crime against humanity or genocide, immediately you can provoke people to make that connection in the eyes of others at that moment. Now, of course, I believe that education and international relations are related, but in reality, it should not have to take mention of a crime against humanity to have other people make that same connection in their mind. Oftentimes, we see international relations as a way, by virtue of the word international, and education as home or domestic. But in reality, the two fields actually shape each other, and they're incredibly related in both practice and in theory. So practically, education and international relations coincide because schools are the primary sites of political socialization for people. People go to school, become citizens, and then engage with the entire world around them. And theoretically, well, everything is essentially diplomacy, whether it's negotiating interests, interpersonal affairs, or representing yourself to a certain body of people. They're very intimately connected. But in the US, access to international relations education in US public schools is incredibly limited and unequal. And in part, this is because we all have such a narrow definition of what international relations specifically is supposed to be. So if we were to open that up more, perhaps we would be able to teach more about international relations across fields. And this is a national problem. So the Common Core standards for social studies state nothing at all about international relations, global or area studies, or world geography at all. And this contributes to a pipeline problem. So the school to international relations pipeline has actually become a school to career diplomacy pipeline. And this is because those who are encountering an international relations education in their public schools are really just getting it in the sense of what it means to be, in the most narrow sense, a diplomat, someone engaging in international relations. I'm talking UN, I'm talking think tanks, I'm talking foreign service. And the result of that problem is reflected by the demographics of the foremost diplomatic source of the United States, which is the Foreign Service itself. So as you can see on these statistics here, the US Department of State career diplomats for 2016 were only 18% non-white, whereas in the US it was 28% non-white as of the 2010 census. And for sex, in the US, in the Foreign Service career diplomats, only 40% of them are women, and in the US, 51% of citizens are women. So you can see that there's obviously a disconnect between the people who are going abroad to represent Americans and America. And that's because, in part, of this narrow definition of IR, who gets access to it and who practices it. So I'm going to prompt you all to imagine what a more inclusive definition of international relations might look like. If we could expand what we think of as international relations, perhaps we could illuminate the need for a broader education of people who don't just want to go into the State Department to be career diplomats, but simply people who want to engage with the world all around them. The tools to make the world a better place should not be limited to those who are lucky enough or have the ability to encounter and afford them. But unfortunately, in the US, we're not there yet. So as a result, when people try to seek out any type of education in international relations, what they're primarily looking to are supplementary programs, such as Model United Nations or summer sessions and summer academies. And the problem with these supplementary programs, while enriching for sure, is that they require a lot of extra time and prior knowledge about IR, a lot of time dedicated to practicing and prepping, and finally, a lot of money. So Model United Nations programs are really exciting, but the bottom line is that they often self-select for hyper-academic and extroverted students who have the means, time, and money to travel around to different conferences, practice, take weekends away from home, and finally, of course, buy a business casual wardrobe. And that's not accessible to everybody. And then on the other hand, you have summer sessions and summer academies. These are often very highly selective, again, expecting people to already have this amount of prior information about international relations before they apply, and they can be incredibly expensive. So I fall into this latter category. I had no formal international relations education during my time in US public schools, so the summer of my junior year, I applied to a 2-week-long intensive crash course program in IR, had a 30% global acceptance rate, and a $6,500 price tag for 2 weeks. And the bottom line of all of this is that had I not gotten very generous financial aid, I would not have been able to attend this program, and for me, that was my only chance to learn about IR. So no aid equals no program. Fortunately, I got some very generous aid, so I went to the program. And let me tell you, I had the best time. I absolutely loved it. This program completely blew my mind, and I ran the whole gamut of everything that's stereotypical about international affairs. So I read like Sun Tzu's The Art of War, learned about the UN and the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. I did a crisis simulation as an acting member of the Kenyan government, things I never really thought I would be doing. I learned what the word hegemony means, all types of things like that. And I had an amazing time. And after that program, I thought I knew it all about IR. I thought I kind of had it nailed down pat and in the bag. So I set my sights on it. I was already determined to restructure all my college applications around this newfound passion that I had just discovered, and I thought it could be pretty easy. So again, changed my whole plan, was determined to do this in college, and didn't see a reason why my interest in education would not be easily fit into this new scheme of international affairs.